Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Life Conversations with a Twist. I have Dayna on from Sonoma County Farm Bureau. I've been in Sonoma County my whole entire life, and I know what you guys do. I used to work for Encore, and we used to support you in all of your guys' fundraising and events. And you and I personally just met a couple weeks ago at a Sonoma County Hospitality Association event, and you were supporting Measure J. No on Measure J, not
No on
supporting
Measure
it.
J, exactly.
No on Measure
Yes.
J. And I cannot wait to have this conversation because obviously everyone sees all the signs everywhere and really probably doesn't know a lot of what's going on and how we even got here. And so I asked you to be on to let's talk about it. Let's talk about how we got here, how it affects our community, how it's going to affect all these farmers and families. So thank you for being here. I know you're passionate about
You're
it.
so welcome. Thanks for having me.
I know you're passionate about it. Obviously, how long have you been at the Farm Bureau? And talk about like your involvement in what you do and, your background, I would say, behind it.
Okay, sure. So I've been with the Farm Bureau only 2 years actually, but I've been a member with the Farm Bureau for several years and have worked closely with them with other projects through some of my other professional outings, if you will. So I worked for Clover Sonoma for about 12 years, so worked closely with the Farm Bureau. Also worked with UC Cooperative Extension when I first got out of college from Chico State, and worked closely with the dairy farmers here in that role, and also worked closely with the Farm Bureau. So now in my role here at the Farm Bureau, I'm the executive director, so lead the organization, and I'm the go-to for obviously the board of directors that really guides the vision and guides where the organization goes. And really our biggest, our biggest mission, the mission really is to protect agriculture, to protect food production, and really be a voice and to protect rural landowners and private property rights. So, there's always so much going on. There's so many different policies, regulations that we get ourselves involved in so that we're at the table to be able to bring education for those that may make false assumptions. We're always open to learning, but we're certainly going to do what we can to make sure that we're setting our farmers and ranchers and rural landowners up for success. And it's just important for us to be at the table for those conversations. So as Sonoma County being as much of an ag community and county that it is, it's important that we play a role in ensuring that we're protecting Sonoma County.
I do have most of my listeners are here locally, so they all know all the different land and farms here in Sonoma County. I mean, we're here. We have wineries. I mean, we have lots of beautiful land and we have great weather to support that. But anybody who is not in this area and doesn't know how many farms, I mean, I don't know if you know the exact number, but like how many local farms do you know are in Sonoma County?
That is a number I should have off the top of my head. I should tell you that, but I think that all farms, everything considered, any type of production farming operation of some kind is around the 3,000 number, if I'm not mistaken. But I
Wow.
would have to get back to you on that number to be honest. But I'm literally saying from like those who might have a small ranchette, if you will, and maybe produce some eggs and a few things and sell outside their home to to our bigger, operations and wineries and vineyards and whatnot. So there are a lot of farms here and very diverse, right? We are such a diverse county. We do not have a monopoly here. We run, a lot of people look at Sonoma County and say, oh, it's a wine region, and it is, and we're so proud of that. But it's also a dairy region. I mean, we started here, like I live in Petaluma, and that's the egg and milk capital of the world, if you will, right? So we're just surrounded by wonderful dairies that are many of them organic. Not all, which is fine too. They're great quality operators. We have wonderful poultry farms here of great scale that are producing local food, great protein for our community, and doing it sustainably. We have wonderful beef and livestock operations, so sheep and goats and beef. And then we have our vegetable growers. We have a lot of vegetable growers here. And then a lot of people don't think about it, but our nurseries, our flower nurseries, all those different, that's also part of agriculture. They're also farming. So we really run the gamut here. And we're really blessed because when we say we have local food and local products, it literally is local, right? And we have neighboring or other Bay Area counties that can't produce what we produce. So their local is actually Sonoma County. So when we say local, we're pretty blessed. It's in our backyard.
Truly.
Yeah.
I actually, I mean, obviously I've been in Sonoma County, but I was like in Santa Rosa and I was like, in like the suburbs. But it was actually my first job out when I worked for Encore, but when it was Cal West.
Yep.
And that was heavy equipment and all their clients were farmers. I remember the farmers coming in and they were renting tractors, and we used to do so many events out there at like the dairy farms, and that was kind of like my into like learning about more of what we have here. But I didn't even think about the flowers. I wrote down, and I want to come back and visit
Right.
this of how this whole measure can affect even our events industry, because a lot of the things you touched on, I mean, that's where
Mhm.
my passion is and my experience is the events world. But you think of the
Right.
florist and you think of the food that supplies to the caterers and like all the things. So we'll get there. But I have a quick question on as far as the Sonoma County Farm Bureau. Do they support everybody, or is it like membership? Like a farmer or a rancher has to be like a member of you, or do you guys just support it all as a whole?
So I'm glad you asked that question. So we are a membership organization, and it is the very members that help drive the success of our organization. But of course, there are plenty of folks who probably could really utilize and benefit from being a member as of the Farm Bureau. But ultimately, a lot of people get the benefit of the Farm Bureau's advocacy, if you will, because even without being members, we're still protecting agriculture in Sonoma County. So there's no requirement. We obviously can't walk into a room or walk into the board chambers and say, I'm here for these specific people. We're here for agriculture. So that's the main thing. We really encourage people to become members because, as I said, that's our driving force. And that's really what makes our organization thrive and succeed. But again, we're in it for the greater picture and the greater good.
Okay, so let's talk about this measure and how it came about. And I've learned a little bit about what you spoke about at the event that we were at, but really tell our listeners more about where it came from and like what will it do if it passes?
Sure. Okay. So this measure was brought to the county by an organization that's actually based out of Berkeley. So the main organization is called Direct Action Everywhere, and that organization has actually been the very group that has been terrorizing our poultry industry over the last several years, that I'm sure a lot of people have heard about in the newspaper and different news outlets. And so through the kind of this effort, they've turned to their PAC, if you will, PAC committee, the Political Action Committee, which is under a different name, which is called the Coalition to End Factory Farming. So they brought this here. They started petitioning. They got it into the county for petition circulation. And of course, a local person did sign that. You have to be a local county resident to do a county petition. So when I say that this comes from Berkeley, I mean, the organization is based out of Berkeley. I'm not going to say that there aren't local people that would get behind the effort. So I want to make that distinction, but we know exactly where this comes from, and it really is driven out of Berkeley. So they started distributing their petition outside grocery stores, just like petitioners do, right? People are walking out, they're in a hurry getting to their car, and they're kind of using misleading tactics, fear-mongering kind of emotional tactics to say, do you want to save animals? You should sign our petition, and people would just sign it. So I knew that once this started, based on kind of the messaging they were given, that tactic of kind of pleading on people's heartstrings, and unfortunately, people putting their names to something that they really don't know what they're signing. I knew that this was going to get on the ballot. So we just kind of started then digging into what will this mean and how are we going to combat this? So what this measure
Basically, that's
does,
how, just to back up real quick,
yeah,
in order to get something on a ballot, it has to be like it has to go through this petitioning process to even get on a ballot. Like it can't just
as a
show up on a
citizen,
ballot.
right, as a citizen initiative. So they have to
Got
be
it.
able to collect so many signatures. Once they put that in there, county council went through it, register of voters said you need to get X amount of signatures. So that was their goal. So they went out and got the signatures they needed. So basically what this will do is they're trying, this is where we get kind of technical, so bear with me, but what they're trying to do and say is that their goal is to protect animals and the environment, and they have some other goals that they literally just call other goals. And in doing so, they're taking what is a definition by the US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and saying, we're going to put it into our county ordinance. And what that says, well, I should tell you, under the US EPA definition, there's like different sizes of concentrated animal feeding operations. So when we talk about CAFOs, that's what that stands for. So there's different levels and based on inventory of different species of animals. So most of the time when I kind of talk about this, I just go to dairy because that's where I come from. That's my comfort zone. So within this definition, and the definition for the US EPA is really based on a threshold for the EPA to say, okay, if you're this size or this is going on, we're going to make sure that you are following the correct regulatory management and making sure that the correct level of regulation is imposed upon you if you are a risk or whatnot. It doesn't put anybody out of business. It doesn't say you can't operate. It just is ensuring that you're following the rules and you're protecting the waterways. That's what this is. So I will tell you that with every farm that's in Sonoma County today, regardless of the US EPA definition or whatnot, they are all in compliance. They're all have their permits. Everybody's doing what they need to do to ensure that the proper record keeping is turned in and that we're protecting water quality. So it is not an issue in and of itself. By taking this definition and imposing it in on our county in the ordinance, it really changes the impact and the implications. So they want to take basically this guide and say, if you have 700 cows or more, you can't exist. You can't be that size. That's all it does. It just basically says, if you have over 700 dairy cows, you have to get under 700 cows. So they are making implications that if you are a certain size, you're you don't know how to do animal welfare. You don't know how to fulfill animal welfare expectations. If you are a certain size, you must be polluting, so you can't exist. It's really irresponsible. And again, the initial definition is changed in its implications and really its outcome if you put it into the county ordinance. So there's really no merit behind this threshold. And it really is just going to put farms out of business if it were to pass.
Because what does like a typical dairy farm, how many cows do they typically
Sure.
have on a dairy?
So it's not really about being typical because every location is a little different and you need to,
Based on size.
for size, right? There's different reasons why you would be a certain size. And a lot of times people get to a certain size because, they have obligations or they might have the next generation. So we need to be efficient, but we need to grow. But nobody can grow very much here in Sonoma County because of our topography, because of our surface waters, because of all the different things that we have to be aware of. There's really a bit of its own limitation, right? Just to be sustainable. So just to put it in perspective, so California's average dairy size is between 2,000 and 2,500 cows, right? So it's a larger scale across the state, all in average. The average size of our dairy farms in Sonoma County is 350 cows. So we are considerably smaller. We are an area of smaller dairies in comparison to the rest of the state. And we're really kind of a specialized area because we have a lot of organic farms here. And just to put it in back to the dairy perspective, I don't mean to leave other industries out, but back to the dairy perspective, 46% of all of California's organic milk that is produced in California comes from here. So if people, and we're serving a market, right? We're serving a market of choice, and there are people who want to have organic and consume organic products. We're able to offer to that market. And so we have to be niche really to compete really on the broader scale, but we have something special here. So basically this measure will unduly put farms out of business where it's not necessary. It's going to impose some budgetary constraints on the county because now the county is going to be forced to enforce this program that's unnecessary, and that it's going to be enforced through the Ag Commissioner's Office, and they figure about $1.6 million per year just for salaries and benefits to be able to staff this program. And also the county's also being charged with retraining any employees that might be displaced from the farms that they work on. So it's important to recognize the impetus of this whole measure. This group that's bringing it to us is their end goal at the end of the day is to not have animal agriculture at all by 2040. They don't believe that people should be, raising animals for food or other resources. So this is really the stepping stone to a greater effort. There's nothing virtuous about this measure. It's really just a stepping stone to their end goal.
It's so interesting because something that you had mentioned at the mixer was people always think of like animals as far as like, I'm a vegetarian, I don't eat meat, I don't, but it's like you're consuming milk and you're consuming eggs and you consume cheese and like there's so many ice cream and like there's so many things that have dairy in it that it's not even just the animals, it's like all the other stuff that comes with it.
Absolutely. I mean, we're feeding people. This is
Yeah.
food, right? And we're doing it in a way that we feel is most sustainable for the environment. We are producing food, being able to let the consumer know that we are treating our animals well, because most of the dairies here, even the poultry operations, are third-party certified by animal welfare, outside animal welfare programs that have a long list of expectations and rules that you have to follow. So they have auditors coming on their location who don't know the farm, who don't know the owner, and they're walking every bit of that farm and that dairy to ensure that the cattle and the chickens and whatever they're auditing are well taken care of, and they're exceeding industry standard and expectation. So we're already putting things in place that where we're asking outside people to come in and evaluate our practices so that the consumer can feel good about what they're consuming. So at the end of the day, again, this is about eradicating animal agriculture. It's not about building a better ecosystem of food production. It's about eliminating it. So this measure is really, it's not necessary. It's not meant to do what some people might think it's meant to do. Putting that definition into the ordinance and having this ordinance does not do anything for animal welfare. It doesn't impose anything for animal welfare. It also doesn't do anything for environmental. It just simply says you can't be a certain size. Today, we do more for environmental resources, water quality, and for animal welfare, and produce a great product than this measure even shakes a stick at, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What was I gonna say about that? I follow a lot of the farmers, you know, obviously, and it's like these cows are happy. It is
Right.
green and beautiful, and they have so much land to be able to roam, and like it's just crazy to me that this is like it has even come up and it's even gotten to this point.
Right.
Um, Not only, I want to talk for a minute about a lot, especially a lot of like the dairies, especially I always think of farms as Petaluma for some reason, because I think that's probably where majority of them are. But a lot of them are family farms, like they've come from generation to generation. Talk about that and how that impacts that world.
Absolutely. So yeah, the farms here are family operated, owned and operated, and have been in the family for multiple generations. They've had the land, they've had their farms for, there's some that span over 100 years, quite honestly. And this very measure, it doesn't, it doesn't distinguish, right? It doesn't matter if you're a family farm or if you're a certain size, it doesn't matter, right? So we also talk about within this measure that they're trying to say it's only so many farms, and people have been asking, how many farms is it, Dayna? And I won't give a number, because at the end of the day, if this were to pass, it gets in the hand of the ag commissioner, and once they get out and evaluate, they'll know what the number is that falls into this large CAFO. There's two things I want to bring up for that. The first is that within this ordinance, it also opens the door for any interested party to be an enforcer. So knowing the impetus of and the goals of this group, that just opens the door for, it's not just going to stay within a certain number, right?
Mm-hmm.
It also opens the door for frivolous lawsuits. So knowing what their end game is, that's very concerning. But the other thing I want to say that's really important is it's trying to be portrayed from the other side as though it's only going to affect X amount of farms, right? So let's just say they're right and it affects the amount of farms they are saying. Right now, those are some of the farms that, even if they're of the larger size, they're still sustainable, they're still doing it right, they're still doing everything good by way of animal welfare, animal treatment, environmental. But let's say they all of a sudden get constricted, they evaluate their viability and say, I need to go out of business. Well, now we're going to take all of those people all those businesses play into the greater resource of economies of scale, right? So if we look at, say, feed supply. Right now, you have feed mills and feed suppliers in town that are purchasing feed on a big contract, right? On a big contract. So the more you order, the cheaper it becomes.
Mm.
These farms go out of business. Now the demand goes down. The price of that feed's going to go up. So the small farmer, the ones that may be smaller, who are already struggling with their bottom line, now their input prices just went up because we unnecessarily made other farms close. So to say that this is only going to affect a certain amount of farms is absolutely disingenuous. And they're looking at it through a tunnel vision because they want this to pass so bad so that they can move to the next level. And this is absolutely going to put not just bigger farms, all family farms out of business. And it's also going to put other family businesses such as feed mills out of business, such as Tractor Supply, veterinarians, nutritionists, you name it, right? So it's not just a tunnel vision type effect. And we're going to watch this entire county change from what it is if this were to pass, and family farms will be a thing of the past.
For people who are not in Sonoma County, most people in Sonoma County know what a like farm community this is. I actually wrote down like the FFA programs and the 4-H, and my daughter was in 4-H. She wants to be a veterinarian someday. This community is so impactful with like that we're so focused in that. And to see that like all go away and not be this like agricultural place that we are, like what does that even look like? And then what would then, and then we're not even sourcing local anymore, which is something that we've been such a big, component on. And now we're sourcing who knows where.
Correct. Yeah, this is a direct threat on our food supply. And like I mentioned before, we produce so much food, diverse food and products of all kinds here, right? Food and fiber. We do it well here, and we have a whole diverse production of products and food. And so if this measure were to pass, it's not like we're not going to want those foods anymore. It's just going to come from other places, right? It's going to come from other places, from people we don't know. It's not going to be in our backyard anymore. It's going to come, right? And now we're going to be putting more vehicles on the road to be able to get product from outside in. So when they talk about the environment and greenhouse gases, we're actually putting ourselves in a position where we're going to be contributing more to greenhouse gas production than we are limiting it or even sequestering it. Because right now with pasture-based farms of all kinds, be it livestock, beef, or dairy, we're sequestering carbon every time we pasture our cattle. And so if all of a sudden these farms go out of business, what's going to happen to that land, right? We're not going to be sequestering carbon anymore. The other thing is, we're all so sensitive, with good reason, about wildfires. And grazing is a huge wildfire mitigator. And so now we take away these farms and we take away these animals from pasturing. What does that leave us? It leaves us overgrown fields. It leaves us, or then all of a sudden do things change and we rezone, and now all of a sudden there's housing all over the place. Like, again, it doesn't matter what part of Sonoma County you come from. This will affect you. It will change who we are as a place.
Well, and I would assume, and everyone's complaining about food costs right now, and if we're sourcing out of the area, I would assume that cost is just going to go up for all the foods.
Absolutely. I mean, let's just take for an example, Clover Sonoma. So they are here in Petaluma. They produce, a lot of, milk and dairy products and whatnot. So if their farms go out of business, say the bigger farms go out of business, now they have to go replace that milk that they just lost. Where are they going to find that milk? Well, likely not here. They're going to have to go somewhere else, and they're going to have to truck it in. Well, now their raw product just got more expensive. So that's going to drive their product in the store up. And then that being said, what if Clover now all of a sudden says, you know what, we can't sustain here. We have to go to where the milk supply is. So we're going to move. That means the local farms here that we're shipping to them, that we're trying to stay in business, now probably won't be able to stay in business because they won't have a home. Or why would Clover walk away and then ship milk from Sonoma to some other place? Like, there's all these plausible possibilities, right? And maybe people say they're hypothetical. They're not hypothetical at all. They're all very possible and plausible. And that's what we have to be fearful of and be aware of.
I love the new billboard that says, with Chloe in
Absolutely.
Park. What does it say? I just saw it today.
It says, save Chloe, vote no on Jay.
That's what it is.
Yeah, save Chloe, vote no, and then no on Jay.
Yeah, and I was like, yes, like,
yeah.
Bring Chloe
Absolutely.
into this because no one wants to lose Chloe in this community.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I worked for Clover and worked with Clover for a very long time, and they are very respectful as well as respected company in Sonoma County. So they typically don't get involved in any type of political warfare or anything like that. But this cuts them off at the knees, right? So this is a threat directly on them.
Mhm.
So they're choosing to stand up now to be able to say enough is enough, right? And you're trying to take us away. So we're going to be vocal about this, and rightfully so.
I just went to the Farm Bureau event. Was it last month at La Crema?
Oh, I love it, love of the land.
Love of the Land. Yes.
Yes.
I have actually never been to that event, or maybe I had, it just had been so long, but I went with Encore's table, and
Mhm.
it was so cool to be back in that community and hearing the ranchers and the families speak. These people work freaking hard. Like, you talk about people that work hard, and I mean, you think as a farmer you have to get up super early. It's their long days. You're out on the tractor. It's hot. You're in flies and all the things, like all the elements of Sonoma County. They work freaking hard.
They do.
And like, to see all that hard work just go away, to me it was very, like, it's heartbreaking. And then we haven't even talked about all the employees that they employ.
Absolutely. So the county did their own report. The Board of Supervisors asked certain county departments to kind of commission a report to give like what's the effect going to be on this before we decide to put it on the ballot or not. We need to know more. So one of the things that was determined through some outreach and whatever is there'll be about 1,400 jobs lost on farms on account of, the result of this measure should it pass. The one thing that's really critical, that's not talked about a lot, is the fact that these farms actually provide housing for their employees.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
So if these farms close, the housing option is no longer an option. And now we're forcing people into an already stressed housing market. So there's a whole other implication on farm families, right? Farm employee families as well, that people aren't taking into consideration.
Mhm.
And a lot of the people, most of the people, if not all of the people that work on these farms because they're dedicated to hard work. They
Mhm.
love animals. They love what it stands for, and that's their comfort zone. They love it. And now, to a certain degree, they're being forced into being trained into something else they may or may not like, right? So somebody else is kind of dictating their future, just like they're dictating the farm's future, right? So there's a real disconnect. And I think that people need to recognize that this whole farming ecosystem, it's not just about the farmer and the farm itself. It's about the employees. It's about their housing. It's about the businesses that work with and for other businesses in town or on the outside. It's a whole community event. It's a whole community ecosystem, if you will.
Well, and something that I wanted to just touch on, again, like, I'm very much in the events industry, and I think about how that changes that industry again. Like, it's like not just the farming industry, but now, because not, they
Right.
supply all the food. I mean, I think about, Point Rays, and they're always at every event, and like cheeses, and like, we
Absolutely.
are a food culture here in Sonoma County. Like, that's what we do. We eat and we drink. That's what we do. Drink wine
Right.
and eat lots of
Right.
amazing food. And
Right.
all of the food and all the dairy and all the cheeses and all the meat is what makes us unique in our, like, food, ecosystem. And so how that
Right.
changes that. And like you were saying, like the flowers, and like, we do events all the time. And then even just the
Right.
farms that hold events, like, I think of Olympia's Valley, and
Right.
it's just like such a ripple effect that people don't understand. Yeah, yes, of course we all want, like, animals to be safe and not, but like, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. The animals are living their best life, right? And that we raise animals in production for production. So we ensure that the animals are treated appropriately within production, right? So sometimes it's a hard conversation to have and people just don't agree with that premise. I can't change people's minds if they don't agree with the whole premise of eating, you know, animal protein or those types of products. I can't change somebody's mind, and I respect the fact if they don't want to. but we need to feed a nation. We need to feed our, and you know, I'm just talking in general, but here we need to feed our people here. We need to be able to contribute to the food shed of California as well, you know, not just Sonoma County. So we need to feed people. And if we're going to do that, we need to do it responsibly. And we're doing all those things. Like I said, we're ensuring that animal welfare standards are being upheld and exceeded by having people that know nothing about these farms come in and evaluate. And they are trained to evaluate these farms. So, you know, we talk about tourism, right? People are coming into this area and they want the wine and they want the cheese. And when they do that and they're driving, I mean, the open space and people are going and they're driving, they're seeing vineyards, and then all of a sudden they see some cows out on the vineyard or out on the pasture. And then, I mean, again, we're just so diverse and our topography is gorgeous. The whole thing becomes in an upheaval, I should say, right? It's all interconnected.
How does, and I've heard this like come up too in conversation, is if they go after, I mean, obviously they're more like animal welfare, you know, protecting that, but like what would this do for wineries? Like, and could it affect wineries long term?
Well, I believe so, but let me get down. Yes, the answer is not that I believe so, but I'm going to take one instance, right? So, of course, on dairies or poultry farms, manure is produced. The manure is handled in a way that compost is created for soil to be able to build soil when you put it back out. We also utilize that material to fertilize vineyards, to fertilize vegetable farms. So we're taking organic material to put out on the farms and vineyards. So, and these vineyards rely on this, you know, animal compost, animal manure compost. It's rich in nutrients and helps build that soil. So if we just start there, that's going to have a huge effect on the production and their ability to produce and maintain sustainability and be able to make sure the soil is built up and sustained. So if we take away all the other pieces, right, the marketing piece and all those things, we just look at the ground, we've taken away a tremendous resource for the beneficial production of wine grapes or vegetables.
Has this group gone after other counties in California, or are we like first targeted?
So this particular measure, Sonoma County, this will be the first of its kind here in Sonoma County. I will tell you that they put a similar ballot measure on the ballot in Berkeley. There's no farms in Berkeley, so not really effective. So ultimately, this particular measure of its kind, this will be the first. But they are in other states, they are in other areas going after animal food production in other ways. But this is the first that they're utilizing this type of ordinance or legislation to get it done.
It blew my mind. I was at one of the markets, the farmers markets, and they were like outside protesting. And I'm like, come on, like, are you kidding me? And they were like, oh, they were trying to approach me. And I was like, I am no, because I have friends who have farms. Like, go away. Like, it just blows my mind. And now I've heard like they're cutting off the no on the J signs.
Yes.
I'm like, what?
Yep, they're defacing signs, they're breaking them down, they're ruining them. Yep, it's ridiculous.
So your mission as executive director is getting this message out and getting this out into our community of what it's about. How likely do you think this is to pass? And like, obviously our job is not done. We still have a few months to go, but like, what kind of work and what kind of stuff is the Farm Bureau and farms doing to get this word out?
Sure. So the Farm Bureau is only one of many groups, obviously, that's behind this. So our political action committee is called the Sonoma County Family Farmers Alliance. So while that's sponsored by the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, we have many other organizations and farmers who are participating as committee members that help drive kind of where we're headed with everything. So obviously getting the word out, all of us are having conversations such as these. We're enlisting a lot of volunteers to be at the farmers markets, to be at different events around the county. We've had a lot of people call and say, will you please come? We're doing a certain event on this day. Can you make sure somebody's there? So we're ensuring that we are making as many touch points as we can, because the most effective outreach is the one-on-one, is really be able to have the conversations just like this one. So we have a lot of that going on, again, being just at some local events and farmers markets. You know, we're going to be doing kind of that canvassing, knocking on doors, talking to people, just to, make sure that they're aware of what this is, and if they're voters, that what they're going to be voting on, and just, making those one-on-one touch points. You're going to start seeing and hearing more as we, lift up, and this is a campaign, right? So we have to reach far and wide and educate. So we have a lot going on that front, but I think it's really important to note the level of support our campaign and the No on Measure J campaign has received. This is a bipartisan effort when it comes to No on J, right? Both Sonoma County Democrat and Republican parties have come out No on J. All of our legislative officials from federal, state, and county have come out No on J for our Sonoma County group. Almost all of the cities have taken a position to be No on J. Our sheriff, labor, public safety, firefighters, it runs the gamut. Environmental groups. First of all, this is food. We need to protect our local food production. The next is, these are our farmers and our neighbors, and we know them and we trust them, and we want to protect them. And then we move into, we want to protect jobs. We want to protect our landscape. We want to, there's a lot of work to be done, and it's all of that outreach and, touching in on some of these groups that disagree, and then they touch the next person. And it's just kind of that ripple effect is so important. So you'll be seeing and hearing more of us. I'm hoping people are seeing the signs that are all around the county, so long as the other side hasn't destroyed them. But we're out there. We're always looking for volunteers. We, a lot of activity going on. So we're always looking for people to help us, in our next endeavor.
I do want to say too, just in general, I know as I actually just started voting probably in the last few years, Bridget actually used to give me crap all the time. She's like, you need to vote. And I'm like, I know. Okay. And now that I'm like a mom and I have businesses, like, yes, like I'm on board. But I always felt like that hesitation of when you're voting and you're not quite sure how to vote because you don't have this information. I just encourage people that if you don't know, to learn, to read the material that they send you, to have the conversations. I know Sonoma County Hospitality Association is doing like a deep dive into some of the measures that will affect the hospitality industry, and I'm sure this is one of them. But get out there and like learn before you make a educated, vote, because it could really change a lot of things. And if people weren't hearing about it, I mean, if someone doesn't know what J is or No on J is, they are living in a hole because it's everywhere. But I appreciate having this conversation and really diving in and how it's really going to affect our community. And again, it's not just the surface level of protecting animals. It's like all the different things that it's going to affect. And so I am thankful that you're here, that we had this conversation, and I support you guys. And if there's anything I can do too, I'm here for it.
Well, I greatly appreciate this conversation and the opportunity to visit with you and to answer questions. And, you couldn't have said it better. If people aren't sure, they need to read, they need to ask questions. I'm very confident that when people start reading through it, they'll see exactly what this is all about, and we'll get the no vote. But I'm with you. I encourage people to educate themselves.
And we'll put all your information of how they can reach out to you, but definitely look into Sonoma County Farm Bureau. I mean, literally, you can find information about this. And also like learn about our farms. Like we have so many really great farmers doing really great work. Again, a lot of families. I just think about all the interactions that I've had over the years, or helping them with their kids' weddings. And it's a very special place here. And I hope that this group doesn't destroy it.
You and me both. I think we've got it, right? I think
so.
The Sonoma County residents, we love our county, we love our food, we love our farmers. So, but it's an unfortunate thing that we have to spend the time and energy having to do this. But at the same time, let's find the good in this, right? Let's bring people together. Let's recognize that we're all in this together, and we want to keep Sonoma County as great as it is. And in doing that, we have to protect agriculture.
I mean, we've been through the ringer, this county.
Right.
And so we're stronger together, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I'm sending good vibes out in the world.
Thank you. So much appreciated.